Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And today it's part two of our four-part series. We're once again with Mike Evans from the US, our Skillz business partner, and as always, Jackson White Jr. So, do you want to fire off, Jackie, with this one? So this is all about systems. So we're talking about how we systemize our businesses, how they tend to do it a little bit differently over in the US, and obviously again the sort of synergies between the two. So you might want to fire off this one, Jackie.
Yeah, sure. So sort of systemizing is something that you and I have discussed for many years, and when we look at how to improve our business process, certainly in my everyday role as a business development director in a defense company, it's something that we look at and examine and work through with our potential my potential business development team, how we can systemize our sales process, and then we can replicate the success from that system, and then roll that out for additional growth within our organization. So systemizing is something I've been a great fan of in my what I call my everyday life, and now having taken that into my martial arts school along with yourself, I've certainly seen the benefits of it, and that's everything from our recruiting process, marketing, recruiting, enrollment, and then just general management of my school. So it's something that I'm a big fan of. I'm really keen to understand some of the benefits that you've seen, Mike, from the systemization of the syllabus from a skills perspective.
Sure. So, just tracing my own evolution as a business owner, as a martial artist, I think we all come from a certain level of systematization where, we have our martial art, and that is a system. Where we teach this, then we teach this, then we teach this, and it's repeatable over and over and over again. And I think that one of the challenges that many of us have are taking that same mindset into other areas of the business, where for many of us, our schools are very personality driven, both the training floor, the sales process, the customer service process. It's all based on who we are as a person, which is great when you're a one-man operation. But some of us are getting to be of an age nowadays where we don't want to be teaching every single class, or maybe I want to go and be on vacation for a day. Or maybe it's time, we like to say that leaders build leaders, not followers. Maybe it's time to pass that torch. And, it's an interesting journey when you take this very egocentric, and I don't mean that in a negative way, just a very ego-driven, this is how I do it, and try to make it so that this is how everybody does it. It's a really tough step to take, but having taken it over the past, I've been a Skillz member now for the past 5 years, and I've been following Melody for another 10 before that. It's really taken my business from my business, my training floor, my marketing efforts, to now I have a team of instructors and a team that works the office. And, we're working now on taking that into the marketing aspects. So I have time, right now, we're about to open, so everybody's painting. I have the ability to come talk to you because they're doing all the things that are in place for them to do that we planned out a long time ago. So, spending the time and mental effort to put these systems in place is directly related to taking my business from something that was a part-time stress in my life, even though I loved it, to it's now the full-time job for 4 people, and we're looking for a 5th.
It's stepping away, isn't it, and making sure that you're, as they always say, you're working on the business and not in the business. I think, and as you touched on there, when you look at repetition, So certainly, like with martial arts, it's all about repetition, and certainly within the skills curriculum, everything is systemized so well, with your rolling curriculum that, it's all about, exactly what's coming, when it's coming, and what it's going to do for that student. But I'm of a mindset that if something could be repeated, it can be systemized, and it's having those understanding those touch points, isn't it, where you have to have human intervention and trying to build a system where you can pull the individuals out of it, so it does everything for you. And I was just having a chat offline about when Zapier launched, and again, it's a bit of software, and basically all it does is just plug the gaps between different other bits of software to basically take out that human intervention. That's what it's done so well.
Yeah, and even more than being able to duplicate it, which is very important for systems. If I want to open another location, I don't want to guess at all the things I'm doing. Those systems make it very easy to do. But it also makes things like scaling very easy. So if I want to go from 100 students to 1,000 students, I can scale up my systems, hopefully, if they've been built well. And it also makes it easy to test what works and what doesn't. I think very often we throw things out there and then it crashes gloriously or it succeeds gloriously, and we're not sure why. And when you have a system, it makes it really easy to test one thing at a time and see what gave us that result. So we can either duplicate it or remove it.
Goes back to the old science days at school, doesn't it? Science experiments.
Exactly. Scientific method. That's it. Even in our advertising, marketing is so important to have systems. You can't just guess at stuff. 5 years ago on Facebook, I could just put up a post and boost it for $5 and I would get 20 students out of it. Nowadays, it's not like that anymore. You have to have a certain amount of knowledge and a certain amount of systems in place to be able to know I need this many leads, which leads to this many trials, which leads to this many new members, which leads to this much money over time. And I need to know all those little things.
You have to measure. The thing is, you have to measure everything now, don't you? It's not enough now just to, I suppose, piss in the wind, as my dad would used to say. These days you can't do that. You do have to measure every little way. But the thing is that there's enough systems and bits of software out there to allow you to measure every single thing. When you look at things like a landing page, the touch point again, you do a Facebook ad, people click on that Facebook ad, they go to the landing page. How many people follow that landing page to the next page? Again, you can start to see the drop-off points or the holes in your bucket, really, where you're losing that water. And I think, we've spoken to a number of instructors over the last couple of weeks, and the last couple of months, asking them certain questions about their businesses. And it's amazing how many just really haven't got a clue and don't measure anything. It is really like what you said. They'll put an ad on Facebook.
I think it's worrying.
Yes,
it's worrying that people don't, they're not measuring, because we had an instance where we had one instructor who spoke to us about it, and we asked him how he measures it. How does he know that if he puts his £100 a month in, it's working? He says he doesn't. He just doesn't, because he doesn't measure it along on the steps of the way. And I think that boils back down to, that the very, very fundamentals of it is having a process. And that's really what we're talking about here, isn't it? Systemizing, having a process. So I get up in the morning, I clean my teeth. The next thing I do, I put my kettle on. I fill my kettle. Actually, I fill the kettle. I don't just put it on because someone else hasn't filled it for me. So I fill the kettle. I then put the kettle on. I hit the button. That is a process. And if you can record that, you can repeat it. And then actually you can start thinking, where can I improve that? Well, actually, if I only clean my teeth for 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes,
don't do that, Jack.
Actually measure the amount of I know they're dazzlers anyway. They can always get whiter. But as an example, if I'm putting an inch of toothpaste on, but I only need half of that. Well, actually, I can make my tube of toothpaste last twice as long. So by understanding each step in the process, you can then look where you can tweak and adjust your system. Whether that's getting up in the morning and getting ready for work, whether that's mapping your leads, running your classes. So that's basically what we're talking about. And I think the next stage from that, once you've mapped your process, or laid down your system, however you want to call it. It's then looking actually, where can you digitize? Because ultimately, if you can do it manually, there's a chance, and if involves paperwork and logging on and filling out a spreadsheet or a piece of paper, then you can digitize that in your organization. So then you can become more efficient. So mapping the process, and then digitizing your system is certainly something that we're driving quite heavily, aren't we, Gavin?
Yeah, I think. We've actually got a mentor that helps myself and Jackson, and his philosophy is, like I just said before, if it could be repeated more than once, it can be systemized. There can be a bit of software built, or there's already software out there that could replace that person. So the minute he sees anything that's been repeated, straight away he's like, right, stop. I'm going to find out how to do this, and he really delves in quite deeply. And we're quite lucky to have him, really, because again, he passes. Lucky for myself and Jackson, he's a good friend and a mentor. So he will sort of really help us out with what we're doing. If we turn around and say we've got a bit of a problem there, he goes, I've solved it. And I think don't be scared to ask other people, ask other businesses, because sometimes you can get stuck, can't you? You can get stuck on an area and think, why is this taking so long? And you just can't see it because you're too busy in it all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting that the leadership principle used to be getting everything to a point where you can delegate it, and now we're starting to replace that with digitize it. I don't think we'll ever remove, especially in our business, I don't think we'll ever remove the human element completely, because really we're in the business of building relationships, and that's hard to do unless you're on Tinder or Plenty of Fish. It's hard to do that with a piece of software.
You don't want to be on that.
I've never heard of such things.
Places.
I wouldn't know what you're talking about. I heard about it. I think one thing that holds people back is it can be daunting at first. We start throwing out, terms like systems and tracking and numbers and measurement and monitoring. And it can be overwhelming for people that didn't start when they were small. We like to look at our businesses as the end result first, and then start the small steps needed to get there. And I think a lot of people just start and see where the path takes them. And then looking back, then you say, well, how are you tracking all these things? And I don't know. So one of the 5 most dangerous words that I was taught when I was trained as a massage therapist, I said the 5 most dangerous words in healthcare are, maybe it will go away, right? So you see all these things and you say, well, I'm doing okay right now. All those things, they'll just go away because I'm just not going to look at them. So taking this work, and when you realize that most businesses are more alike than they are different. Just like people, we are more alike, you and I, than we are different. What's different? You guys talk funny, and I speak normal English, right? So, if you guys could only see Jackson's face. When we look at this fact that there's a lot that's similar, all I have to then do is come up with what's the flavor difference. So ice cream is made as ice cream, and then we add flavors towards the end. So if you're in Taekwondo and I'm in Kung Fu, our business systems will probably be very similar. We have to have systems to catch people's attention, get them in the door, enroll them, teach awesome classes, and maintain that relationship when they're outside of my school. Doesn't matter that you're Taekwondo and I'm Kung Fu guy. Now, the flavor of how we apply that might be a little different. But the cool part about that is, if I was a new business owner getting into this and you guys start telling me about, oh, you got to have all these systems and you got to track all these things and you got to do this, and I go, oh my God, I just wanted to teach some classes. You can take these modular systems out of a similar business, even if it's not in the same industry, and plug it in. So that's the nice part about having systems, is it makes a mentoring relationship or a coaching relationship even more powerful because it's plug and play.
And it's not so much. Certainly for me, it's not daunting thinking about it. It's the time that it takes to actually implement it. It takes so long to get these systems right, to working well, doesn't it? But it's an investment in your business, isn't it? You've got to take that time. Either you do it or you employ somebody who knows how to do it and who can understand your vision. And that's something that me and Jackie talk about a lot. It's so difficult sometimes you've got it in your head. You know what your vision is. You know how you want it to look. You know the process, but it's trying to get that over to a developer or get that over to a company that understand that. And quite often we go down the path of learning how to do this stuff ourselves. And once we've got it to a point where we actually, we understand, like, for instance, building funnels. Building funnels, it takes a long time. It's so tedious, trying to get every link to make sure it works. And one link connects to another link and it's got to connect in the right order. And it can take months and months. But, that's something that, certainly me and Jackie are like a skill that we're trying to add to our collection is understanding how it works. But then once we understand how it works to probably 70 or 80%, then we'll then say, right, we're going to give this to an expert in the field. We know our vision. We've mapped out how we want it to look. We're going to give it to these guys now to get it looking polished. And but it is, for somebody that's never even, never heard about how to do Facebook ads or doesn't understand what a landing page is or, doesn't understand how a funnel works. Quite a lot of the time, it's the case of they just go and they get themselves a website. They'll pay a designer a fortune to build them a website that doesn't necessarily do the job. It looks pretty. Yeah. And the way I look at it is, a website is like a shop window. Right? We've all got a website. We've all got a shop window. But having a good sales funnel within that site is like a sales assistant stood on the street, dragging you in, telling you, oh, you need to buy this dress, or ma'am, or you need to buy this suit, sir, or whatever. And I think it can be quite, like I say, it can be quite daunting if you don't know.
It is, and you've got some nice dresses as well, Gavin.
I almost said you got to buy this nice dress, sir.
It's interesting. I think one of the benefits that I've certainly seen, and I've worked in a number of businesses where, and again, whether it's my martial arts business or my digital surveillance businesses or my rugged computing businesses, where we start off with a simple process which fits one person. We take our time to map that out, and then when we want to expand, it just allows for that expansion and growth very, very easily. It's like turning on a tap. First of all, to get the water to the tap, you've got to do all the plumbing and the patching and the routing. Once it's routed, you can turn your tap on. Yeah, that's fine, and you can get as much water as you want. You want more water, all you do, you increase the tap flow. You've done the hard work in the beginning of the process by mapping the stages, and then and I relate that to bringing somebody else into your business. If there's a process that they can follow, they don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can also then retain that consistency. But of course, that's something particularly in our martial arts schools, and certainly again in the businesses that I work in or have worked in, we want to maintain that high level of consistency, that repeatability. So once you've taken that time to go out and do that effort at the beginning, then it's about then allowing your business to expand and grow at that the same consistency, but also to the same level.
So, when you mention consistency, I don't know if you guys have this term over there, but anytime a martial arts school in the United States steps up and starts systematizing and, really excelling in business, all the other failing martial arts schools around the neighborhood start saying, oh, you're a McDojo. And they use it as a denigrating term. But really, when you go to McDonald's, you don't go expecting a 5-star experience. You don't go expecting steak tartare and lobster thermidor. You go expecting a Big Mac. And the idea behind McDonald's is not that their food is so good. It's that if I go to McDonald's over here and then go to McDonald's, I've been to McDonald's in Ankara, Turkey. It's the exact same experience. I know what I'm getting, and I know what the value proposition of my $1.99 is when I walk in. So, replicating that in my business is important. And when people call me a McDojo, I smile and thank them, because that means that they're starting to recognize that I have these consistent things in my business. And if I ever do open a second location, it'll be the same. You know,
I like the term personally, a Mac Gauchos. I want to call me a Mac Gauchos. That's fine. That's a high quality Argentinian steak house. I love that place. And they're around the world, and it's about the standard that you want to retain. You know, you're right. People do use the Mac Dojo terminology as something degrading.
Yeah,
and people have to systemize their businesses.
What I like that you said too is that you start small with one person. You know, when we started putting systems in place, now we came in as a Skillz member early on. So my systems for my training floor and my team training, you know, those were easy. You know, and like Gavin said, we spent a lot of time understanding them first before we tried to change them. But they're pretty much plug and play. When it came to all the other nitty gritty of the business, you know, I was in a mastermind group, and one of the things that they had us do was pick up our phone, and every time that, you know, we go around and you mop the floor, you have whoever, one person, like you said, one person will follow you and record it. And then they transcribe all the steps. So I do it the way I want it done. They record it, so now they have a video record to refresh their memory. And then they write out all the steps. And all they have to do now is bring that back to me and read it off. All I have to do is say, oh, you missed the part where I pump the sprayer 10 times or whatever it is. And now that becomes a standard operating procedure for my business, an SOP. It goes in a binder, and then their job is to do the same thing with the next person and see whether that process stays the same or changes. If there's changes, those changes have to come back to me for approval. If it works, you just continue it. And one small, tiny thing every single day leads to a binder that's very well, I mean, everything's digital for us now, but, you know, it leads to a folder that's fairly thick of processes. So if I hire you and I say, you know, hey, Jackson, can you do me a favor and mop the floor? And you go, well, where's the brooms? It's in the SOP binder, page 7. Everything you need to know is in there, you know, and it'll lead you step by step. So now I can focus on whatever the other thing is in my business.
To be fair, if you asked me to mop the floor, I'd say, Gavin, mop the floor. That's my SOP.
SOPs roll downhill.
Exactly.
You might get a right hook, and you have to.
It would be the first one from you, Mr. Cook, that's for sure.
But just on that, it's worth mentioning. You must have read the E-Myth, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you read the E-Myth, Jackie? Is it Edward Gerber? Michael Gerber? I forget who the.
It was a long time ago.
And he talks about the pork pie factory.
Like something close to your heart, Gavin, pork pies. Yeah, go on, keep going.
No, but it's just that same idea, isn't it? It's talking about technicians and business owners, and so, like I say, as long as you're doing the tasks all the time, you've not got those processes like what you talked about, Mike. You know, you're always going to be the technician. You're never going to be the owner.
Yeah.
You know, it's just understanding, isn't it? It's just understanding when you're doing all these jobs. It's a bit like us, like we were saying yesterday. You know, I think the dream for a martial arts instructor or a martial arts school owner is to get to that point where you're teaching because you love to teach, not because you have to turn up and teach every day. If you can get to the point where you have enough staff, or you have assistant instructors, or whatever you want to call it, even your storm team, your junior instructors. You know, if these guys or girls are taking the classes and it's doing well, and you could step away from it a little bit, then that's the dream, right? You know, you're not walking away from your club, you're still overseeing it, and you're still teaching the classes that you want to teach. But I feel there's so many, there's too many instructors out there that are trying to do every class by themselves, and it just leads to burnout. And what eventually happen is they fall out of love with the sport. Mm-hmm. And the business in the first place, which is a shame.
I think the key thing is, I think one of the key things to highlight, you know, we are used to systems in martial arts. That's how we've learned. You know, when we're going up and down, you know, when we're doing our patterns or katas, all martial artists, that is a systemized approach to deliver a martial arts to people. We don't go to we didn't go to Korea, or we didn't go to China 300 years ago. We've learned because someone has systemized our syllabus for us, and they've captured it in a methodology in the katas and the patterns, so we can learn through repetition. What the challenge I think we have in the martial arts industry is martial artists aren't necessarily great business owners. They start their martial arts clubs because the love and the passion, the want to spread and share their knowledge base of martial arts. But I think key to that, or key to doing that successfully, and as a professional or full time, or something that also you can earn your living from, however you want to frame it, is understanding how to systemize and process the business side of your school, because that's just as important as the high quality that you're delivering to your martial art, to your students, making sure that you can manage and run your business successfully.
Absolutely. I mean, you wouldn't walk into like a Jaguar dealership and expect them to be like, "Hey, Marty, where's the keys?" And I don't know which key this goes to. It's not just that it's a fantastic car. You also need that fantastic experience in the dealership that makes me want to feel confident in buying it. And I think systems, do lead to confidence. I know in my sales process, as soon as I was able to work with my partner so that she felt good about what we were presenting, she walked out here one day. We had this idea that we were going to charge like $400 down payment, not even tuition. We never did it before. And we talked about it, and she said, "You know what? I feel good about this. Watch this." And she walked out and came back like 5 minutes later. I just made $400 because she was so confident about it. And I think when you have these systems in place, it breeds competence because you know what's expected, how to measure what's working, and you know the steps that are taken to do what needs to be done. And when you have competence, it leads to confidence. Confidence is most of what leads to success.
And I mean, I'm just going to give an example of a system which just popped into my head, really. But I know, obviously, we got this pretty much from you, Mike, because I know that you do you and John, you're very big into your pre-evaluations, aren't you? Before students come to your school, you sit down and, you take them to the office and you have that pre-evaluation, try to understand why the parent brought the kids into the school, what is it they're looking for, etc., etc. So we were thinking about that because obviously myself and Jackson, we don't have our own full-time Dojang, so it's a little bit more difficult for us. It's not like we've not got a central place where we can really look at doing that.
Sure.
So we had the conversation. So we've just literally built, and it's taken probably best part of 3-4 weeks really to get it right, and it's still not 100% right. So it's an online survey. So this is something we're building into our new website that we're in the process of building, ready for, I suppose, proper pre-launch, sort of August, September time, because we want to get it right. So when people first visit the website, or they land on the landing page from an ad or whatever, the first thing that they do before they can book into their class, or concurrently when they book into the class, is they'll get offered to do a survey, and that survey would be the same questions that you or I would ask in that pre-evaluation. Why does your son or daughter want to start martial arts? Is it 1, they're having trouble at school, or 2, they just want to punch someone in the face, etc. I mean, you can put these curveball style questions in there just to see what sort of reaction you get and see if it does get, it's one of those things that gets ticked. But hopefully, off the back of this sort of pre-evaluation type survey, again, we're talking about systemizing it because it's taken us out of the loop now. If it works well, this survey should paint us a fairly decent picture, hopefully, if they've been honest, obviously, when they've filled it out, of why they're bringing their kids or children, or what they're starting the school. And again, it's just using a bit of modern technology and the current day systems to make our life a bit easier. Because again, those pre-evaluations, how long does it take as a rule?
I usually we do about a 45-minute session. That said, it's about 20 minutes of mat time, and the rest is our, it's almost a discovery session that we do.
And I think certainly with the COVID thing, I think if we'd maybe looked at that maybe 3 or 4 months ago, it might have seemed a bit impersonal. Oh, okay, I'd rather come in and speak to the chief instructor because I don't really like this technology thing. But we've all been put into a position where we're used to it now, and we've been forced into it. And you know what? It might not actually seem as impersonal as it was before. It might be, I like this. It means I don't have to take a trip to the school before my son can start. They can ask me all these questions.
And I think something like that, when you're working from a system, it's important that you not violate your system. I know a lot of people, they have all these plans and these rules, and then somebody comes in and they're like, oh, I'm going to lose the sale. So they start making promises that are outside of their normal processes. And then that relationship invariably becomes a sticking point somewhere down the path. So to use that example of the evaluation process, for us, there's several steps that goes into it. And we're very deeply invested in the Skillz methods in my school. So for us, we're making sure that the systems we have built, which are very solid systems from the point of contact through the enrollment, the training floor, and the out-of-house experience, what happens on Facebook and in between classes, it works well. But the best mechanic in the world may use the same systems as a baker as far as assessing what's going on and crafting something beautiful, but you wouldn't take that mechanic and put them in the bakery, even though the processes are similar. So our evaluation process makes sure that we're putting the right people in our right system process to make sure it's successful. We're setting ourselves up for success, and through that, making it a relationship where we're better able to make sure that the people we're bringing in and promising things are going to find a similar success. So having those clear lines of what happens at each step with whom and why helps us be a little more discerning in who we bring into our school. And it's completely appropriate to say, hey, we're not a good fit. I'll recommend somebody else.
No.
And it comes down to understanding who your client base is as well, isn't it? Because different schools, look at bringing in different people. There's a lot of schools that don't care who. Anyone could just turn up and pay on the door and punch your bag for an hour.
Yeah.
And there's people like your school where you have to be the right fit for the school before you can even get a free trial.
I look at it this way: there are within my radius here, my service radius, there are about 500,000 people. There's no way I can serve all of them. So why am I going to try to enroll everybody? I only want the 150 people. We max our school at between 150 and 165 by design. I only want those 150 people that match what I do. That's it.
Yeah. And do you know what, Mike? That leads us on quite nicely to tomorrow's subject. I know we're running out of time now. So, in a quick couple of sentences, why would you recommend that schools start to systemize?
So the easiest answer, and I just spoke about this in a coaching call a couple days ago, was we can't breed order out of chaos. It is very difficult to do. If we want to replicate our own success in the martial arts for our students, and if we want to replicate business success from today to tomorrow in my own business, or as I pass it on to the next generation, I have to have a method. So every single thing we can do to define how, why, and what is going to be valuable in continuing these processes, whether training, sales, or marketing, beyond me. And that is our goal as coaches and teachers, is to pass it on.
I think that leads us on quite nicely for the subject we're going to cover tomorrow, leadership and our Storm teams. So for those that don't know, within the Skillz program, there's a strong leadership program for the next generation of instructors called Storm, and we're going to use the methodology and the systemization that Skillz have incorporated into growing that particular syllabus, and we're going to discuss that in more detail on our next session.
it is also a highly systematized syllabus, as you'll see
Most
tomorrow.
definitely. So it's a great lead-in. Mike, thank you for your time again today, sir. We really appreciate it, and I know our listeners will be appreciating the pearls of wisdom that you're dropping in.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for spending the time with me.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Good to see you again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your listening platform. It would be awesome if you could also leave us a review. We really appreciate your valued feedback.
Also, check out our website, themotivatedmartialartist.com. We also have a YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook page, and Facebook group. All the links are available on the show notes below.
We'd like to thank again our show sponsors, skillsconnect.co.uk, the world's leading children's development program for martial arts. If you're a martial arts school owner or instructor and are looking for some inspiration, ideas or drills for your children's classes, make sure you check the Skillz out.